Well, good morning. My name is Dan Weeks. I'm joined by David Greer, the CEO of Wire Belt. We're sitting here in the Wire Belt conference room in Londonderry, New Hampshire, just a stone's throw from Manchester-Boston Regional Airport. Thank you all for joining us. I serve as the Director of Market Development for Revision Energy, an employee-owned solar clean technology company based in Maine, New Hampshire, and Massachusetts. And very pleased to get to join David here at Wire Belt, even as right above us on the roof today, our crews are installing your third phase solar expansion, becoming a nearly 100% solar-powered industrial facility here. We're going to spend the first part of this program just talking with David a little bit about why you as a business leader decided to make this transition, efficiency and solar clean power generation, and then provide a bit of an overview for business leaders out there who are interested in understanding some of the financials, some of the technology, and then leave plenty of time at the end for your questions. We'll be sure to wrap up by noon. If you have to step off sooner, that's fine too. If we don't need the full hour, that's fine too. And sorry that we're a few minutes late getting started. So let me dive into our little interview, if you will, David. You've known Revision for a while. You've been very conscious of energy, efficiency, and clean power for a while. Give us a quick word about who Wire Belt is and how you got started on this clean energy transition.
Well, Wire Belt Company is a fourth-generation family-owned and operated business. We manufacture a wire mesh conveyor belt that's used in food processing equipment, circuit board manufacturing, textile industry, all types of industries. Now you might see it in a D'Angelo's or Dunkin' Donuts on the little toaster ovens, or at Pizza Hut on the conveyorized pizza ovens.
It's those nifty things that are spinning in the background, bringing everything where it needs to go.
Right.
Right.
So we've been around, next year will be our 100th year in business as a family business. And we also own factories in England and Germany.
And then getting into the efficiency. This was something I think started early in your life.
Early in my life, when I was growing up, Dad always said, "Turn the damn lights off," and I thought he was just kind of cracked. So
I had a dad like that too.
Yeah. So then I grew up a bit. Then I bought my first house, and you buy your first house, money's kind of tight, and then you get your first electric bill.
Oh yeah.
I learned to turn the damn lights out. It was expensive, and realized that the less electricity you use, the better off you will be, the cheaper it is. And so that was part of it. And then the next phase comes as my engineering background. I think like solar power is almost like magic. You've got this black panel that you point at the sun, and without any moving parts or anything, it generates electricity. And that's just cool. So harnessing that power just seemed like a great idea. Also, now I'm not the typical tree hugger that many people are, but I believe in conservationism. And that is leaving a softer footprint on the earth and saving our natural resources for those behind us, because the world is finite and there's only so much of this stuff there. So anything we can do, regenerate natural electricity, it's the right thing to do.
But I would suspect that as somebody running a business, a 100-year-old business at that, intent on leaving it for future generations, continuing to do this good work, the economics were pretty important. Can you say a little bit about, I understand you began with efficiency, LED lighting in the space that we're in here, for instance, and then solar. How have you seen the economics work out?
Well, I'd start probably even before the solar industry was a solar industry. My passion for saving electricity and saving money goes back probably 15 years, and we started what I call the Energy Conservation Committee here at Wire Belt. And we had a small committee of passionate people who looked at every use of electricity we had, and we changed how we used electricity. We put in processes to, we relamped everything to at that point it was from the old fluorescent lights to the T8s. And again, we've just gone to totally LED lighting everywhere. We put in motion detectors to turn off lights in any office or the warehouse, wherever people aren't. We also replaced all of our HVAC things over a period of time, and my edict was when we replace things, we will use the most efficient equipment that we can get. So as a result of all of the different work we did there, we cut our electrical use almost in half, which was really cool.
And now we are at a manufacturing facility. There's a lot of power being used.
A lot of power being used,
Cut
a lot
that
of electric
in half
motors.
is tremendous. And I'll just note, if I may, yeah, we love to fill your roof with solar and do as much as you need, but if you need less, that's a good thing. And in a lot of cases like this, a major industrial facility, you may not have enough roof space anyway. So if you can get efficient first, that is definitely the way to go. And then to solar specifically and to revision, how did you make that jump?
After we did what we thought we could do, then it was time to look at what else can we do. And you know, a personal passion of mine has been solar. And as I said, it looked like magic to me, so investigated putting solar on the roof, and we put our first 100 kilowatts system on the roof 10 years ago, and at that time it was the largest PV installation in New Hampshire. It's certainly since then been eclipsed quite a bit. But then we did another 50 kilowatts, and right now as we're sitting here, another 125 kilowatts is going up on our original roof, so overall all of this PV will produce about 50% of our electrical usage.
Tremendous, thank you. And can you say just a little bit about how you found Revision and how your experience has been working with the team?
Well, the thing I really like about Revision, and Revision has done my personal house also with the battery backup system and all the neat toys, because you know we take the long view, which is a nice piece about being a family business. But Revision is a value-driven company, which really tugs at me. It's the right thing to do. They're a certified B Corp.
That's
certified
right.
as yes, and employee-owned, and they are doing the right thing for the environment. They are passionate about what they do, and that passion speaks to me. So, and they've been very responsive, do a great job, and the crews that are here are just fabulous. So well, it's a pleasure to work with.
We appreciate very much this partnership. Maybe a final question, then get into some overview information for folks out there, and then open it up for questions. If you were advising, and I'm sure you've gotten questions from other business owners or leaders thinking about making that transition, any kind of general advice you'd give as they start down that road?
Well, I would recommend what I did first, which is lighten your electrical load wherever you can. That will only help. But jump in. You know, when we first started with our first 100 kilowatts, we knew that the panels would get better, and right now I think the panel efficiency is about 50% better than it was with our original installation. But you can't wait. Just do it. The federal tax credits really help make the project worthwhile. Just do it.
Thank you. Well, we won't argue with that. Let me then flip over to, we do have some slides that we wanted to walk through with folks, and those should all be on your screen instead of the webcam. And I'll note that once again, we want to leave plenty of time for questions, making sure that the screen is showing up here. Just one moment. Show screen. Pardon the minor delay there. The screen should now be showing. And if you can all see that screen, I believe we are good. Again, this is an overview of clean energy options, solar in particular, but not limited to solar for New England businesses. And a quick view of where we are today here at the Wire Belt facility. You see to the right side the original array, to the left the roof under which we are sitting right now, the phase 2, and then the far back section is where we are currently installing an additional roughly 130 kilowatts of solar. Moving ahead, you see the Wire Belt employees here. As David mentioned, this is the place where Wire Belt began, but you have operations in Germany and England as well.
Yes.
Places which I understand are also substantially solar powered.
Yes. The passion. One of my reasons for pushing solar is, business in many instances does not have a great reputation, and one of my passions is to show that businesses can be good, like Revision, like Wire Belt Company. We can do the right things, and to show our neighbors and people around us that yes, companies can do the right thing, can do good, and also to show them that it doesn't hurt.
And I will note that this particular company has been honored many times by the likes of New Hampshire Business Review and Business New Hampshire Magazine for being one of the best places to work and doing great work. So we are truly honored to be partnering. Let me move briefly through who we are and some of the experience that we bring. Revision, I am one of now about 230 employee co-owners. As David mentioned, we're an employee-owned company. Also very proud to be a certified B Corporation. That means that we have written into our charter and gone through a rigorous certification process to show that we are a triple bottom line company that's very much invested in community and in our environment, as well as operating a successful business. To date, we've done well over 7,000, actually about 8,000 solar energy systems, as well as some other technologies that I'll say about a few words about in a minute. We do everything in-house. Our credentials here, we have all of the certifications. That is important to us, that we're able to provide our clients soup to nuts, not having to contract out for what we do, but really have that experience in-house and be able to provide the very best in the way of design and installation and administrative support. And our vision, as has been alluded to, is to help businesses and other institutions lead that transition here as a region away from dependence on fossil fuels toward clean, renewable energy and create positive social change in the process. Solar rooftops are the biggest part of what we do, but solar ground mounts and carports are an increasing share as well. Policy changes are making large ground mounts more feasible today than they were not long ago, and some changes coming down the pike will help to accelerate that, we think. But in addition to that, because our vision is not just generating clean power, but being able to power our entire lives, our businesses, our lifestyles with that clean electricity, we have also expanded into heating and cooling systems through hyper-efficient air source heat pumps, the transportation sector through electric vehicle charging. I drove 150 miles this morning over to Durham and back from Nashua. Not quite that much, but a good bit in my Chevy Bolt, charged by the sun, and those technologies are real, as well as LED lighting. So those are some of the principal technologies. We also do battery systems, mainly for homes, such as David's home. Very briefly, some of the clients we've worked with, some leading educational institutions, some municipalities, and many, many others that are at various stages of development. And then on the commercial side, in addition to Wire Belt, you see here some other respected companies in the area, LL Bean, Grapponi Automotive, McFarland Ford, and others that you see here. And we're honored to be more than just the installer for these institutions, but to be partners working over the long term on that clean energy transition, supporting the nonprofits into the future, helping to expand our reach and lift up the good work that our partners do as well. We've been honored to be ranked most recently as the #1 solar rooftop installer in New England, or 14 in the US. That's from Solar Power World magazine. And like Wire Belt, to have recently been honored with a number of the business awards in New Hampshire and various other certifications. I want to spend a little bit of time on solar energy systems. That is the biggest part of what we do and what may be of most interest to folks out there considering how their business can take advantage of this new technology and the very old technology of sunlight. So you see here just representations. These are previous installations we've done, a sample ground mount. This is out in Durham and Lee, a major ground mount for the municipality. We do as well, of course, rooftops. This is a pretty typical commercial pitched roof, or in this case, a school. You can get nice production on a nice pitch like this without shading, facing south, although you don't need to be perfectly south. You can have some shading. It just, you lose a little bit of the efficiency that you would otherwise enjoy. Rooftop systems, of course, for businesses, this is probably the most common, where it's a flat roof, typically a rubber membrane, and we sit the panels on top, make no penetrations, so there's no risk of leak. They're weighted down to meet wind requirements, and can also be a very efficient source of generation. That's what we have on most of the wire belt roofs. And then more recently, we're seeing the carport pricing come down, and that can be, particularly in a place where we get plenty of snow still these winters, there are some added operational benefits to carports, which we are also installing. Of course, the panels are the visible part of the solar array, but the brains of the operation, so to speak, are the inverters. In this case, for a mid-sized commercial installation, we'll have in the neighborhood of 6 inverters, as many as 10 or 12 sometimes. And these are converting the DC electricity, the direct current that flows when the sun hits the panels, the silicon cells, creates that current of electricity. It flows down through conduit into typically the utility room here, and into these inverters that are working whenever the sun is shining, converting that DC into AC electricity, which feeds right into the panel and thereby powers the load in the building. Any electricity generated by the sun that is not being used in real time behind the meter, so to speak, to power that facility is automatically exported over the existing power lines, the connection that the building already has to the grid. And those electrons flow out and literally power your neighbors when you have excess production on a nice sunny day. For each unit that you export, you get paid only slightly less than what the utility charges when you purchase units of electricity, kilowatt hours. So it's a near one-to-one exchange where you get most of the value of what you would have to pay when you export electricity, and can thereby, on a net basis, become a 100% solar-powered facility, even though in real time, on rainy days, you're not actually generating all your power. You're using those credits that you exported on sunny days. And happy to get into more of net metering for those who are interested. Very briefly, the financials for New England businesses. Installation costs have come down significantly, about 70% in the last decade, to anywhere between $2 and $3 per watt. That means a larger system like the one we're currently installing is a few $100,000. Not insignificant, to be sure, but much, much less than it was when you did your first system, as you can attest, David, 10 years ago. Even on larger systems these days, we're seeing pricing coming below $2 a watt for large ground mounts, for instance. That is the cost to build it. Fortunately, there are still important incentives. The federal investment tax credit immediately takes 30% off the project cost the next time you file your taxes. A business will have a big tax bill. I know you do here at Wire Belt, so monetizing that tax credit is not a problem whatsoever. Additionally, about 20% of the project cost, so put those together, and roughly half of the total project cost comes back if you have the tax liability in that first year of filing your taxes, when you add to the ITC the depreciation benefit. The cost of solar electricity, I'll show a chart in a minute, is typically between 2 and 5 cents per kilowatt hour, as compared to roughly 10 cents or sometimes more when you purchase electricity from the grid. And that gives us a financial return that's typically in the 5 to 7 or 8 year range as in terms of a payback. So that would be an ROI as high as 20%. And the savings can reach into the 7 figures for larger systems. We build these systems to last for at least 40 years. They do carry a 25-year warranty for the production of the solar panels themselves. And in terms of operations and maintenance, you could speak to your own experience, David, having had your first system up for 10 years. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you've had any unforeseen challenges or costs along the way.
Not with the panel. We had one inverter go bad.
Okay.
And that was replaced under warranty.
Yeah. So the inverters carry typically a 12-year warranty. The panels 25 years. Whenever we're developing a cash flow, a proposal for a business, we'll model in an inverter replacement because that is the one component. It's got some moving parts, doing a lot of work. that will need to be replaced in the life of the solar array. To show some kind of sample financials here, just 2 slides that kind of summarize what we see. This is a mid-sized commercial system, 400 kilowatts. That's roughly 1,200 panels. Under the turnkey purchase, the light line, the light blue line that you see, there's that initial cash outlay. In this case, close to $1 million. But half of that investment is recouped in the first year to less than $500,000 in year 1, thanks to the investment tax credit and the accelerated depreciation. And then in the case of this project, under that cash purchase, the turnkey scenario, you're looking at an additional roughly 4 years for a total of 5 or 6 years to pay back that investment. And from that point forward, the savings climb quite substantially because every kilowatt hour of electricity you produce is free power. Under a loan scenario here, we're modeling in the dark blue line a 5.75%. We have seen rates lower than this recently, although they're starting to tick up again. In that scenario, you are cash flow positive from the beginning because your loan payment is slightly less than the cost of electricity that you would have to spend in your ordinary budget if you're not generating it with solar. The total savings a little bit less because of interest on the loan, but still in the millions of dollars. And just represented one other way, the 2 bars on the left are the solar purchase or loan scenarios. On the right are the utility scenarios. Again, we're typically seeing for businesses when you take both cost of supply, plus the transmission and distribution, current rates are usually somewhere around 10 cents a kilowatt hour in New Hampshire and Maine, and very similar in Massachusetts. Rising over the next 40 years, they're likely to be closer to 20 cents a kilowatt hour averaged over that period. And we use that 40-year period because that's the expected minimum life of the solar array. We typically model a conservative 2.5% a year escalator to give that average projected cost over the next 40 years. But regardless of how quickly or slowly grid electricity rises, it is unfortunately about impossible that it will not rise to some degree. And therefore, when you compare it to the solar scenarios at roughly 2 to 3 or 4 cents a kilowatt hour, that is how you generate those very substantial long-term savings. And just very briefly, I do like to include a couple of slides on community engagement, especially when we're working with nonprofits, schools, what have you. We love to educate their students, their stakeholders, but also with businesses to do the ribbon cuttings, to put out the press releases and really tell the story in a way that will create win-win opportunities for both. Raising more awareness around the company's commitment, which is very strong here at Wire Belt, to clean technology, which we have seen in many cases does attract new customers. And of course, helping us tell this story and encourage other people to be part of the clean energy transition. So I want to leave the formal presentation there, and then we would love to open it up for any questions that folks have, which you can write in via the dashboard. And maybe a first question back to you, David. You've seen your first system 10 years ago, your second system just a couple years ago, last year, if I remember right, or the year before.
Year before. Yeah.
Year before, thank you. And your system now. Have you seen any changes of note in that time in terms of, well, we know the overall cost has come down quite a bit.
Yes.
Speak to what you've seen in that evolution.
Well, the system being put in right now is larger than our original 100 kilowatts. It's like 130 kilowatts being put in now, and it is less than half of the cost. So it has made remarkable strides, but I'm still not sorry that we jumped in when we did. If I could, being a manufacturer, I love New Hampshire. I want to grow manufacturing here, but our electric rates are very high, and we compete against the rest of the country.
Yeah.
So one of the things for you business owners out there who may be listening is one of the primary reasons, besides my personal passion, was we put all this PV in so that we could maintain our competitiveness and use this as a competitive advantage. Many of our customers really enjoy knowing about this system, and they look very kindly upon us versus some of our competitors. So there is another side to the payback of this that can't be monetized.
Are there any examples that come to mind where somebody was, whether it's an employee, we know we have workforce challenges here in New Hampshire, plenty of out-migration of young folks, and attracting that workforce can be a challenge, and we do know certainly anecdotally and from polls that young people are more environmentally minded, clean energy minded, or from a client standpoint. Have you seen that play out in particular ways?
Yes, being on the forefront or investing in PV has made it, what you said is absolutely correct. The younger generations now are much more in tune with, and they want to work for a company that has a mission that they can get behind. And making conveyor belts, I hate to say it, but it's kind of boring. But our outreach, our use of solar and other things really make this a much more inviting, purpose-driven company that helps attract the younger generations to work here. And as you know, with the unemployment at 2.7% here now, finding employees is very difficult, and any little hook that you can use helps.
Thank you. That actually, I think you've largely answered a question that did come in about how your employees and customers feel about your sustainability practices. I'm guessing they feel pretty good.
Yes, very good. We have some key like Tyson. They have environmental. They want to put a little check mark next to their suppliers for good environmental practices. So our key customers are looking and want to partner with companies who are doing the right thing.
Although Revision Energy isn't in the business of procuring wire belts, I'm afraid, I can say that as part of our becoming a B corporation and maintaining that status, and we have to be verified in that, we look at our supply chains, and if we can choose a supplier that is powering their facility with clean energy as opposed to dirty fossil fuels, it's a no-brainer for us.
Yeah, I would also say that a number of our employees have looked at what we've done here and said, hey, I can do this at home. I've done it personally, and I know of a handful of other employees here who have done the same.
Thank you. Also related to that, another question here. Do you have a sustainability officer on staff? You mentioned the committee that you put together
Yes.
years ago. Was that a group of employees volunteering to be involved?
It was a group of employees volunteering, and we do not have a sustainability. We're a small company. We only have 95 people here. So we can't really justify a sustainability officer. However, it is driven by passion, and we are also ISO 14000 certified or registered, which is the environmental ISO certification. So this does drive through our company that we're doing the right thing.
Great. We are in New Hampshire, of course, and one thing that gets talked about a whole lot, especially in the business community, I hear it a lot, is that high cost of electricity. And you spoke to the importance of finding a competitive advantage. As you project out your expenses running this business, are you seeing that being able to now, shortly, once we commission this latest system, you'll be about half solar powered? Are you seeing that reflect back into your cash flows as a reduced expense?
Yes. It all helps. And at the end of the day, it's what comes in, what's left over at the end of the day. And we've always been a New England company, and Yankee ingenuity is in my bones.
Yeah. Well, we are famous for our Yankee frugality. I was raised in a similarly oriented family. I can say, like you, to not be paying an electric bill to the utility these days for my home is a wonderful thing. Mm-hmm. There is that upfront investment, whether you're financing it or saving up and making a major cash purchase. but that does certainly earn its way and pay itself off, typically in, as I noted before, 5 to 8 years for a business. I might just say a word, and again, for anybody listening who has questions, we do have a little more time if you want to type any in the box there, the question box on your screen. But we do get a lot of questions about the policy environment. New Hampshire has not been quite as committed to the clean energy transition as our neighbors to the south and west have been. We see, for instance, in New Hampshire that only about half of the state's total electricity generation comes from solar today, and we're contributing to that here with this latest installation, whereas in Massachusetts that percentage is about 8%, and in Vermont it's over 10%. One of the reasons for that is for particularly large facilities with even bigger roofs or a lot of ground space, with the capacity, the space to install very sizable systems over 1 megawatt. State regulations have not allowed that. It's been illegal to install beyond 1 megawatt. But one bill that recently made its way through the Senate and now through the House committee and is coming before the full New Hampshire House of Representatives, Senate Bill 446, would raise that project cap from 1 megawatt to 5. And this is particularly notable for municipalities, cities and towns that have those old landfills that have been capped, that can't be used for any other purpose, but you can certainly stick some solar in the ground. And so in those cases, we see municipalities lining up and coming to Concord to testify, to urge lawmakers to allow them to build larger systems. And in a lot of these cases, all that electricity will be used by that municipality. It's not for general sale to the grid. And so we are encouraged to see, on a very bipartisan basis, legislators supporting that bill and some other important bits of legislation. I say all that to, number one, reinforce the point that this is by no means a partisan issue. And Governor Sununu recently came out publicly calling for not just raising, but actually removing the cap to allow municipalities to build. The sky's the limit. We certainly have enough sunshine in New Hampshire to be able to meet a very large share of our electricity needs as a state. But secondly, to point out for businesses or municipalities thinking about the potential to really grow in this area, the legislation does seem to be catching up with that. We're coming toward the end of the hour. Again, a final opportunity for anybody out there who wants to pose a question. We'll give it just a few more minutes. And maybe, David, if I can put one more question to you. It sounds like you've pretty much picked certainly the low-hanging fruit here.
Running out of roof.
You've done the LED conversion. You're generating clean electricity. I'm sure there's a lot of more specific efficiencies in particular to this facility that you've been realizing. Are there other projects that you're looking toward as you finish filling up this roof, or what might be future steps in your clean energy transition?
Well, my long-term goal is to be net neutral here. We are net neutral in our company in England and about 87% of the way there in our company in Germany.
Wow.
But we've run out of roof here. So we may be talking about the carports, we may be talking about other alternatives, but where we are is so close to the airport, we cannot do a wind turbine. Mm-hmm. So solar is the only way.
Yeah.
So, and as the panels get better, who knows, maybe we will change out our older inefficient panels and donate those and upgrade to, because I'm about halfway of where I want to be.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I can say, I noted earlier that in the last decade we've seen about a 70% decline in panel prices. That is for the cost to produce that kilowatt of electricity. The panels still need the silicon cells and the aluminum framing and all that, but the efficiency of those modules, I don't know exactly what the rating would have been 10 years ago, but probably in the region of 200 watts for a standard panel. The panels we're installing as we speak today are 320 watts, I believe. and we have continued improvements in the panel efficiency. So that could be something, a way to use that existing roof space a bit more efficiently in the future. We did briefly talk about carports and some large institutions, educational institutions, for instance, that have massive parking lots, but whose roofs may be less suitable. We're seeing a lot of interest in that technology. I'm sorry that you can't do wind right here by the runway, but I might just note, for businesses that perhaps don't own their roof, maybe they're leasing their office space and not able to go solar, or at least not 100%. There are a lot of options. There's the efficiency that we talked about, particularly in the area of lighting, but also heating and cooling systems with air source heat pumps. And there is the ability, not something Revision provides, but other good third-party energy suppliers, where through the renewable energy credit system you can procure that grid electricity that comes down through the wires from clean sources. When my wife and I, for instance, aren't getting the electricity in real time from our solar panels, we're getting it via RECs from wind farms in the Midwest. So that is an option for a business that wants to, as part of their own commitment, but also their sharing the word with customers about that commitment to sustainability. There are a lot of options out there.
If I might just jump in and reiterate
Please,
what you said, this is not a partisan issue. This is not Republican or Democrat. I'm very conservative, but this is the right thing to do. I don't care what your beliefs are on man-made global warming or not. This is the right thing, is protecting our natural resources, using less. So I urge anyone who's still listening, please, really strongly consider this.
Great. I am seeing just a final question that came in, and because we haven't quite hit noon, we want to pick that question up. Give us just a moment. Question: what would make a sustainability coordinator position make more sense for your company? You mentioned you're at about 90 employees here.
What would... Yeah. Well, I kind of think that what we are doing now accomplishes what a sustainability officer does. Personal passion of mine, the Energy Conservation Committee, we are pretty focused on this, and I just will admit to not knowing what else a sustainability officer might do.
Sure. I can simply add that working with my home city of Nashua, I know the city is now looking at it's a much larger institution with dozens of facilities, so in that case it's a bit of a no-brainer. But as we've been encouraging the city to take that step, we have found other examples where in bigger businesses and municipalities, the cost of a salary for somebody whose job it is every morning to think about becoming more efficient, generating clean power to save money, the cost of that salary is dwarfed by the savings that we see other large institutions realize. In a smaller company, especially one as forward-thinking as this, that may not be true. You've certainly picked as much of the fruit as we can identify, and we take our hats off to you for that. I did receive another question here. Can you discuss the economics of commercial LED retrofits? I don't know how long ago exactly you did this retrofit. I can speak to some recent numbers that we see.
One of our environmental objectives over the past year and a half, as part of our ISO 14000, has been to replace every bulb in this building with an LED bulb. Now, we've come across a few specific sizes we just cannot get yet. But this was done as I said, over the last 18 months, and I don't remember.
You've got a lot of numbers to keep in your head.
Thank you.
We'll give you a pass on that. I can say, because that is a part of Revision Energy's work as well, that when we're pricing these retrofits for commercial facilities, plenty of variables obviously goes without saying. One key question is the status of the condition of your existing ballasts, and whether we're simply retrofitting with new bulbs or replacing ballasts. A reason that we will often recommend replacing ballasts is that your old ballasts do need replacing anyway after a handful of years, and the operational costs of maintaining traditional lighting systems are quite high because the bulbs burn out after a couple thousand hours, particularly if you're looking at outdoor lighting where a company or an organization might have to hire a lift and go around and replace all the bulbs. So we will often find that it makes more financial sense to go beyond simply replacing bulbs with LEDs and replacing ballast to ensure that you get the maximum life of those LEDs, which is north of 20,000 burning hours. So you can literally be looking at 20, 30-year lighting without needing to be replaced in that time. A typical payback that we see for commercial LED projects is 3 to 5 years, sometimes 6 or 7 years. Yeah. But certainly a facility like a warehouse that might have multiple shifts, that has a lot of burn time on those lights, because of both the operational savings and the massive efficiency improvements, payback can be as short as 3 years. And there are some incentives still available for those kinds of energy efficiency projects.
Another cost savings is the lack of maintenance required on LED. They just last and last.
Yeah. Well, we are coming up to the hour. It's about 10 minutes to. We'll give it maybe a final minute if anybody wants to type in one last question. But in the meantime, I do want to thank everybody for taking this time this morning on a busy Thursday morning to spend some time thinking about how clean energy might be able to work for your business. And I want to particularly thank you again, David, for hosting us here at Wire Belt, for being a tremendous partner to work with, and frankly, just the kind of business leader we hope to see more of in our communities and society, thinking about both the bottom line of sustaining a healthy business and providing good employment to your nearly 100 people here and those in Europe, but also leading by example in this clean energy transition to ensure that we protect the things that are dear.
Thank you very much. It's been my pleasure.
Thank you so much, and a good day to everyone.